Day 2 of the Natchez Trace Parkway starts where we ended Day 1, that is at the Rocky Springs Campground. Here is a map of where Rocky Springs is located on the trace. Our night was uneventful and peaceful. The Tiger performed well, heating up our hot dogs in the microwave oven, and the 3 large windows and the large roof opening providing plenty of fresh air, and a couple of fans also aided to our slumber. Another beautiful day on the Natchez Trace Parkway. Recapping, we did stop at every turnoff that was open on the trace. Most of the small turnoffs were assigned and some information on what was there at one time. On those turnoffs, we let you, the viewer, pause the video and read the information if you're interested. On the more unusual sites, we will stop and enjoy it with you. This is the Natchez Trace from mile 60 to mile 100. Like many of his generation, Carl's Meade came from the east seeking opportunity in the Mississippi Territory. He owned a tavern on the Old Trace near Natchez and held several political offices, including acting governor in 1806. During this time, he ordered the arrest of Aaron Burr for treason, but the former vice president was acquitted. Meade followed the growth of the state and moved to Jackson area. He built his beautiful landscaped home, Greenwood, on this site. Little remains today of the grand estate that burned after his death during the Civil War, except the family cemetery along the walkway to our right. In case you missed part 1, which you'll link at the end and above, a stand is simply a place that sold items of travelers, mainly coffee, sugar, and salt. As for the rest of your food, you are expected to gather and hunt yourself on your journey on the trace. This is the Parkway Information Cabin. However, it was closed, but it did have portable bathroom set up. The Trace is a beautiful drive, but it is not RV friendly. Many turnoffs, if you have a large RV, you are the only one that will fit. The Tiger, which is 26 feet long, at times felt large. Traveling the Trace is no problem, but some turnoffs state no RVs. And some, if there is another vehicle already there, a larger RV will not fit. And the Trace has no shoulders to the roadway. The Trace has 2 areas that have RV parking: Meriwether Lewis Grave and the main Welcome Center. In this information center, the Tiger had to take up several spaces, parking sideways. There are several turnouts where you can exit your vehicle and take a stroll on the old trace. This is one of them. It is a time to reflect on the hardships our forefathers had to endure to seek out a better life for themselves and their families. A surprising encounter on the trace is the Ross Barrett Reservoir. This 50 square mile reservoir is formed by an earth-filled dam. It is administered by the Pearl River Valley Water Supply District, an agency of the state of Mississippi. This Ross Barrett Reservoir of the Pearl River parallels the parkway for 8 miles. Here at Boyd's site is a spot to dig deeper. Constructed during the late Woodland, early Mississippian period from 800 to 1100 AD, Boyd's site is now home to one of 20 interpretive American Indian historic sites on the Parkway. Excavation here at Boyd's site revealed that it is actually 3 mounds in one. Initially, 2 mounds were built side by side. Then both were covered with more earth to create a single oblong finish mound. The remains of 41 individuals were found in Mound 2, but there were relatively few accompanying artifacts. Different pottery types were found in separate areas of this compound mound, indicate that it was constructed in 2 phases. As mentioned, the first phase was the late Woodland period, and the second, after considerable length of time, during the Mississippian period. The next section of the trace is from mile marker 100 to 170. One can actually still walk the trace from start to finish, but we decided to travel the trace the way the maker intended it to be traveled, by RV. As mentioned, we stopped at every open pullout. This one, at River Bend, was closed due to recent storms, which uprooted several trees. Along the trace, many pullouts have a picnic table. Some pullouts, like this one at Yakanukani, is a designated picnic area and happen to be next to a cotton field. Myrick Creek offers a loop trail that is about 2 miles long. This is CUOCTAW Museum Information Center. It is a little off the trace and not associated with the National Park System, but it did provide some information and admittance was free. There are times where you have to guess at where you are. Usually, before you approach each turnout, there was a half-mile marker, at least most of the time. On February 15, 1934, Congressman Jeff Busby introduced a bill to survey the Natchez Trace. 4 years later, it became part of the National Park System. To honor this congressman, this area is named Jeff Busby, and it is where we camped for the night. We pulled in around 3 p.m., just like we did at Rocky Springs. But what a difference! We ended up getting the last site, and by morning, it seemed that some of the sites had double occupancy. Again, camping was free. Day 3 will take us to the highest point on the trace and in Mississippi, and we finally go off-road and into the woods. So stay tuned. And as always, thanks for watching.